to finish a year and win the final, like it's not just a one-day event. I think that is just something it's such a special thing to win, because I mean you work the whole year to get to that point. It's not something that anybody can just rock up and say, okay, I'm going to fish today, I won the day, yay. It's something.
The last barbel I picked up both his lines. With the wind pumping like it was basically just impossible just to try and control it. I mean, the waves hitting us, the way they were hitting us, I was in the water just about waist deep trying to get this barbel out because it was stuck on both his lines. And he walked back and he just said, you know what, Richard, I'm going to bite my lines off.
We take a new approach by coming completely in 50 meters, but this guy is just at 5 meters or 10 meters, and just getting some feed there to start getting the fish active in the area.
Welcome to another episode of the Original Podcast with me, your host, Saki van der Kerk. Alright, welcome back to another episode of the Original Podcast. We've got a nice English episode for you tonight. We've been having a bit of a run on the English episodes lately. I think we've had 2 or 3 in the last couple of weeks. So we're just going to continue that for probably another 2 or so weeks because we've got a couple of other English guests also on the list. But before we continue, Dad, welcome to tonight's episode.
Thanks, Buta. Yeah, I'm ready for action. I've got to count my words tonight because my host can, or the guest can quickly smack me here from the side. So I'll be careful. It's a heavyweight. I'm not that heavyweight anymore.
Heavyweight boxer. Yeah, and then as you can see, tonight we've got the guest tonight is an old, not an old face, a well-known face on the podcast. He's been on here quite a few times.
He's old as well.
Richard, welcome back to the episode, to the podcast. We've just checked out. It was almost more than a year ago that we did the last episode, so you are more than due for another episode.
No, Saki, thanks a lot. Once again, it's a pleasure being here. And to you and Barry, your dad, I mean, thanks a lot for inviting me again. It's always just been a privilege.
Yeah, it's like so what's the reason why Dad let you know together record tonight? What's the reason behind that? Just ease of use?
Yeah, I think it's because Richard is. It's always a story with the computer and everything. I'll chase through there and give it to him and quickly link up and come back. And so he said, no, you will.
I think Dean just said he doesn't want to help us anymore. I think Dean just said,
Dean's there, but I mean, Dean's actually just started work now, so I mean, he won't be there now.
Ish.
So, I mean, it would have been myself and Amanda battling to try and get this all set up again.
I've been wondering about this so many times, Uncle Richard. Like, if I was still in South Africa, if I still lived there, and we could have done the episodes in person, like it's just so much more fun doing it in person. Like we did the episode with Johan Bierkus. We did that one at Western Accessories. We did the episode with Gert and Cole in Namibia. Like doing an episode in person is just a completely different story than doing it online. Online works well because I'm here and I can't be there in person, but to do it in person is it's on the next level. It's so much more fun.
I'm sure it is. I mean, being in person is always better than just being, I don't know, you're thousands of kilometers away.
Yeah, I think in December.
Does it get you quite fast or what?
I'm planning on coming back to South Africa in December for a little bit. I'll probably be there for about a month. I think in that month, I'm going to try and record quite a bit of episodes with people that's around. Last time I went to South Africa, we traveled a lot. We went to Namibia. We went down to Cape Town. This time I'm going to be not stuck in Johannesburg, but I'm going to stay in Johannesburg. So we've got no travels or anything like that planned. I've got one quick race that I have to do one Sunday, but besides that, it's going to be fishing and podcasts and just staying at home. So we'll definitely see if we can work a few in there. Dad, let's go. Quick question.
Maybe we can try.
Try the Voldam again. Where did you go when you got those nice yellows?
No, well, what we must try is first take him out on the boat and see if he can catch a fish off the boat.
Okay.
I still haven't. On Griekie, I haven't caught a fish on Griekie yet, have I?
you have.
We went out that day and I blanked and you got 3. That was the only day
It
I
was
fished on it.
just that wasn't a club comp, but after that, you, me, and Mom went there to Milman, and you caught that. You caught the
A couple
lekker
of barbel.
barbel.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, no, you have. Now, luckily, you are on the scoreboard. It's only in a club comp that you can't catch.
We'll make a plan. We'll see what we can do. I think we'll plan that closer to the time. But I'm excited about that. But Richard, there's a reason why we invited you tonight. Not just because we wanted to do an episode with you and you are due for an episode, but you also did really well. We spoke to Johan Bekers last week about his final, the elite final, how he approached it, and then he said that you just knew what decision to make at what time. Will you just quickly tell us what happened on that day? What's the reason for all of it?
The bigger picture.
Yeah,
Saki, yeah, I mean, I think I went to this final very open-minded. Obviously, as usual, I mean, I got Reinhard with me. I mean, we had a simple plan, not to try and make it too complicated. I mean, on the Friday we got there, we fished the teams event where we didn't do bad at all. I mean, we did actually very well. We ended second as a team. Unfortunately, in my zone, I had a Peter Walker who caught a barbel like at 5-3, and he pushed me down to a second place. Otherwise, I think we would have won the team event as well. And we just carried everything through till the Saturday. Game very open-minded and very plain. This that we went with all this, the different dips and strategies. We went to the strategy of just trying to find the right distances. I think that was very important to get the distances right. And on the Saturday, Reinhard and I drew pegs next to each other. So we sat next to each other in the semi-finals, in the morning session as well as the afternoon section, and we just decided I'm going to do
But you were in 2 different blocks.
Same block.
Same block as well.
Same block.
Okay.
So we decided, no, I'll do the further distances, and he'll do the closer distances to see if we can get something that's going to work for us. And that's what we did. And it very quickly came apparent that I'm on a game plan that's leading us to nowhere, because the deep distances or the further distances just weren't working. So I had to quickly change. Obviously, after losing a grassy, I don't know, must be at least a 10-kilo grassy, right in front here, just before I landed it, it just came out the hook. So that peed my day off a bit. I didn't enjoy that. I quickly had a change.
Quick question. You saying that now? You obviously saw the fish, right?
I saw the fish. I was getting ready to land it. Reinhard was still shouting to me, just calm down. I'm coming to help you. And I said, I've got it.
We had a conversation about 3 weeks ago. My dad had a boat league, Mpumalanga boat league. At where did you guys launch? Flamingo Bay. They launched it at Flamingo Bay, and my dad got a big barbel. For those of you that haven't watched the podcast in 2 or 3 weeks, you won't know about it. But anybody that watched it would know. My dad is still broken about that. My dad lost a beast of a barbel. But it was one of those where he could see the barbel and he saw it multiple times. And then we had the discussion on the podcast. Which one do you prefer? And I'm going to put that question to you. Which one do you prefer? Do you prefer losing the fish before you see it at, let's say, 80 or 90 meters? Or do you prefer losing it after you saw it? You have to choose one. You are losing. Yeah, Rich, you're losing the fish.
Definitely.
But do you want to see it or do you want to not see it?
I'd rather not see it. I mean, even if it's at 50 meters or 60 meters, I haven't seen it yet. I know it's a very big fish. I don't want to lose it right in front here just before landing it. I think the whole bank knew I lost something, because I mean there were some words that came out there which weren't very pleasant. And but I mean it happens. That just wasn't meant to be on the day. I mean, I did everything right. It came in. It was ready to land. A grass carp always in front here. That's where it gives you your hy veg haar tot sy gal uit is. So, I mean, I was ready. It was basically swimming into the net. And the next thing I just seen, just turned away, and that's it. The hook had come out. And no, yeah. So,
I
I mean,
think
the
I opened
morning
up a
session for
wound
me
there
was.
next to you, Uncle Rich. I think I opened up a wound next to you.
Daddy with these.
Yeah, that's a cock feeling.
I had this conversation with your dad. He had told me about the bauble that he had
Mm.
lost as well. I mean,
He
I
told
spoke to your
everybody,
dad
Uncle
and I
Rich.
told him.
He told everybody about that bauble.
You know how big that head was, Saki?
Mm.
That big.
So, Uncle Rich, okay, but let's go into
Yeah,
you. So you
so to
lost
answer
that
your
one.
question, definitely. I would definitely, I'd rather lose it inside there. I mean,
Yeah.
that should have been in the net. I mean, that would have given me a much better position for the morning session. I mean, I went to the afternoon session seriously worried and concerned because I wasn't getting the smaller fish like Reinhard was getting the smaller fish. Him and I had talked, and it wasn't about dips. It was just basically doing the basics and using just small little does. And I was doing it, but yet, I mean, I was getting yellow fish after yellow fish after yellow fish. Even after taking dips and that off, the yellow fish were onto me. I don't know, maybe it was because Reinhard was using a number 1 and a number 2 hook, and I decided to go with the 08 Daiichi. Maybe it was just the smaller baits that the yellows were picking it up a lot easier. That's
Dad, who said
possibly the
about the
reason.
bigger dough? Who said it about the bigger dough that they didn't catch the yellows because of the bigger dough?
I think it was Gideon.
No, it was
Well,
before
I mean, to
Gideon.
me, a smaller doe, I mean, a yellowfish is a predator. So he'll come over your bait, he'll basically lift it with his tail, turn around, and he'll smack it. That's how a yellowfish actually feeds. We all
Was,
know that.
was
So
it the
maybe it
Martinez?
just comes up a lot easier. I should have maybe just thought about it and put bigger does on.
Dad,
Although,
I
I
think it
mean,
was
I was trying the
Martinez.
obvious.
Martinez.
It was Martinez because Martinez also said that on the day on the final, the guys around him was clapping the bigger, the small yellows, and the guy next to him told him to put a bigger dough, and he didn't even have dough there. So the guy next to him gave him a packet of dough, and then he put like little like groot lekker deeghies. And he said as soon as he did that, the yellows completely gone away. Most of his yellows that he caught were size.
Yeah.
So it could have been
But
literally
once
like
again, it's
something
all
from a
decisions you
away.
make. Decisions. I mean, I made the decision to use small does. I was actually just pressing the little does back into the ball, and I was physically just putting a drop of the dips I was putting on. Just a drop to just try and eliminate the yellows.
The yellows.
And because I'm pushing it back into the ball, my bite tempo wasn't as good as a lot of the guys around me. I mean, they were catching yellows left, right, and center. And you have to actually sit on your hands and think, is something going wrong with my angling? Or am I doing the right thing? Because you see, they're in and out, in and out. When we land a fish, it's an undersized yellow. I mean, I land a fish, yes, it takes a bit longer, but sometimes I get the carpy on or little grass carp. So that's a bonus for me. So yeah, that was the semi-final. The semi-final with Philip van Wyk, also in our sub-zone. When we turned after the first 4 hours, he immediately threw a barbel rod. Little head, I don't know what head he threw. And it was with a question of maybe 30 minutes, and he was into a barbel. And that just solidified his position. He won the sub-zone that day. I was just fortunate to come in the 4th place. I had a bad morning session, and I couldn't catch up in the afternoon session. So with that in mind, the next morning, the game plan had completely changed. I also went and I fished the shorter game. The same as what Reinhard did the previous day. I fished the shorter game, and I didn't even try and fish as a matter of fact, I think the first session, I only fished with 2 10-foot rods. I didn't even fish with the long rods. I could get the 85, 90 with a 10-foot rod. I might have thrown the 12-foot once or twice, but they were also just giving you those small undersized yellows. And then I got a few undersized grass carp. And if I say undersized grass carp, I'm talking 100-gram grass carps. I think I've got 4 of them. Philip van Wyk was getting his fish as well, but he was getting little carpies, which were size. and that was a bit concerning for me. But I knew from the morning session, I had Monet Simon come to me and said, "But you must have those little grass carps because the wind's going to come up that afternoon session. If you got grass carps, you're in the pound seats." Keeping that in mind, I mean, I had 3 or 4 of those undersized grassies. And obviously, the rest is history. I mean, when we changed after that first session on the Sunday morning, I just made the call. You were saying, Johan was saying, decisions made on the day. And I made the ultimate call to say, I'm throwing both rods for the barbel, which I did. And I was fortunate to get 4 reasonably nice barbel. So, yeah, it's just decisions made on the day.
And at the end of the day, what happened? What place did you get? That gave
Well,
you
I
the
mean,
one.
I won the day. So, I mean, I won the Elite Series, the Masters Division. I had 30 odd kilograms for 15 fish, which of the first session, I mean, I think I had maybe 3 kilos of little carps and grass carps, small fish.
Yeah,
So the barbel paid off for me on the day.
yeah. But
And did you battle too bad
congratulations.
then?
No, thanks a lot, Saki.
Richard,
Battle to
we
the
said it. We said that to Richard as well in Martinez and Gideon. Like to finish a year and win the final. Like it's not just a 1 day event. And I think that is just something that it's such a special thing to win because I mean you worked the whole year to get to that point. It's not something that anybody can just rock up and say, okay, I'm going to fish today. I won the day. Yay. It's something that it was your commitment throughout the whole year. It is making the plans, doing the right decisions at the right time, not just for 1 day, but for the whole season. Because it's a whole season that got you to that point. And for you to
Definitely so.
get to the on the top step, well done, Uncle Rich. I think well done. That's congratulations from our side. I think that's an amazing achievement.
No, thanks a lot, Saki. I mean, yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. It's not just a 1 day or a 3 day session where you rock up on the Friday and you think you're going to do well. I mean, you had a field of 20 anglers there, and I mean they were all top anglers. You were the same, Johan Beekers, and I mean we all know to beat him is. I mean, I feel chuffed because I beat Johan Beekers. But I mean, you had guys like Willie Richards, you had Philip van Wyk, you had Reinhardt right next to me. There were a lot of top anglers there, and it's a privilege to be in a situation to win the Elite Series. I mean, I think it's just a calf up your stocky. What
But
do you say?
like most of them will also say that it was a tough day because they had Richard in their zone.
I think we all at the same level.
Yeah.
It's just who makes the better decision on the day, and
And
ultimately,
whose name is on that fish?
and whose name is on that fish. If I think back to the Saturday morning where I lost that big grass carp, I mean, it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
So yes, I mean, I just like to all the competitors on that day. I thank them as well for the competition. I mean, Philip van Wyk, he's a hard guy to fish against, and I mean, they call me Brombeer, but I think he is also a Brombeer. And I mean, him and I were at each other's throats all day, just trying to knock each other silently, trying to just get in underneath his skin. And I mean, yes,
All you do is you pull his lines out. If you pull
yeah,
his lines out twice, Philip is done. Hey, Philip,
yeah, no.
kid iron.
No, but to all the competitors on the day, well done to everybody. And then I'd also just like to say, I mean, congratulations to Reinhardt as well. I mean, he's been my peg mate for how many years now? And him and I worked out a game plan. It was a very simple game plan, not too fancy, very little dips, distances, focused on distances and getting the distances right. And I think that paid off for us. And so, yeah,
And you
congratulations
were
to him.
first and second.
We were first and second, yes.
First,
So
second, and dan hom
it's
Johan
a
derde.
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, so I mean, to everybody, not just the first three, to all 20 that were in the final, well done to you all. Like you said, it's a whole year in the making. And I think this year was even harder, since that we were only, I think, 27 or 28 that qualified. So out of the 28 or the 27, only 8 of us fell out on the Saturday.
8 of us, 8 of them.
8 of them. Oh, well, only 8 fell
He was
out.
always. He was close. He got in
I
with
was
the skin on
close.
his teeth.
I got in 18th position.
Yes.
I was actually very lucky. I was blessed. I mean, I said to Reinhard, I think that's it, I'm out. And I was blessed. I finished 18th. But ultimately, 18th is 18th. If I finished 20th, I still made it through to the final. And
It was
What a
enough.
bonus it is.
it was enough to get me through to the finals on the Sunday. And yes. So, yeah, thanks to
And
everybody.
then
It
Sunday,
was
you
nice.
actually did it with a smile. It was a comfortable win.
I don't think it was did with a smile. I mean,
But I mean, it was comfortable. I mean, what was the points difference between you and Reinhard?
Reinhard had a lot of fish. I think he had 27 fish, but he didn't have many kilos. So, yeah, it was reasonably comfortable. It was just because of the size of the barbel. And even so, I think it was comfortable against Philip as well, because Philip, when we turned, I think he had about 12 fish. He ended up on 17. And I think I had 8 or 9, whichever I had those 3 or 4 small grass carp, which are not even 100 gram, I don't think.
So it became bait.
And they became bait. Those 3 became bait.
Can you just explain to the viewers, what do you do with that small grass carp actually?
Okay, it's actually very simple. Not nice. A lot of people don't really like it, but I don't quite bite it off. Yeah, I mean, I've got my knife with me now. I chop it.
Yeah, but how do you cut it?
I cut it basically right at the end of the 2 gills, right at the end. But before I do the cutting of the head, I cut the 2 the fins off, plus your gill plates. Yeah, I cut it off so your gills are exposed, and I cut off right at the gill. So there's basically none of the meat that's in the body is it's just the head. And they've been saying over the last couple of weeks that the head must be very small. And I think Martinez Yeloff said it. The smaller the head, the better it seems to work. And I've been a firm believer of all the years to have grass carp as my first choice. A lot of people prefer
definitely
other, but I prefer grass carp. To me, it's got a lot more oils and that in it.
100%.
I prefer it even over a muddy.
Yeah, anything. Like I would say the ultimate head. If you give me a table full of fish, I will take a grassy. Day in, day out. No bullshit around that.
Head or fillet doesn't matter, the same.
Yeah,
I will take any one of them as long as it's a grassy.
As long as it's a grassy.
Those yellows I caught was also on a grassy.
Okay. They had Van Driels. All right. No, well, I mean, I was sitting next to Charles Hammond at one stage during the course of the year leading up to the finals. And he says to me he prefers the medallion. So in other words, not the head. He first prefers cutting the grass carp or even whatever fish he's using, a medallion. And then he wraps, tries to keep the guts and that with it and wrap it with cotton. I even tried that over that weekend. But to me, the head was just working a lot better.
And
I must say, on the Friday, I even threw the fly nets and I got a grass carp. It wasn't too big, maybe 6 point something kilos. Was caught on the fly nets. So I tried that obviously again on the Saturday morning, and that's what I got that big grass carp on. Was on the fly nets. So that was in my game plan until I lost it. And from there I said, "No, look, we have to start talking."
The one you lost. The one you lost was a big one.
I reckon it was at least 10 kilos. But I mean, it's gone. It's history. It wasn't meant to be. It's not in the bag.
If you take that fish, you saw it now, and you double it, and you put another half, then you almost had my barbel.
Okay.
Goodness.
That I have to say, like the way that Richard is like explaining that it was an undersized grassy and a small grassy, and the amount of times that he said it was a grassy makes me think, like, I wonder if it was a yellow.
Yeah.
Well, the way that he's like over exaggerating. It was a grassy. It was a small grassy.
And you're not allowed to put a yellow head.
You're not allowed to. And I mean, Philip and I had this conversation, and I don't know if he did put a yellow on, but I'm saying you went and you got a yellow out of your net. He says, but so did I. I said, no. You go look at the body line there. It's a grassy. So yeah, no, look, I mean, I wouldn't even chance it if it was size. I don't think I would even cut that little grass cop. If it made 150 gram, I think I would have still kept them there, but I knew they were well under. They weren't even 140, 130 grams. That's how small they were.
We spoke to
So it was just a
Johan
bonus
about
in
it.
catching them.
We spoke to him
How
Johan
do you
about
actually? Yeah.
it. So we were talking to him Johan about it because we had a conversation about this 2 or 3 weeks ago where we said like we don't know if there's an actual rule against using an undersized yellow. Because I mean we've all fished leagues and trials and everything like that, and we've seen it on multiple occasions happen. Like I've personally seen it happen more than once where little yellow is sometimes a victim. And when Johan said that no, it's not allowed to be undersized, you are allowed to take one that's size, but it's not allowed to be undersized. And then we said like, but as soon as that head is off, you can't measure that again. Like it will be impossible to police it at the end of the day. So it's just one of those things where it's a difficult.
I actually spoke to a guy last week, the end of last week, that said to me, the only thing that you're supposed to do is you just cut off the lips.
And
Cut
then-
off the lips. You can't then say what it was.
No.
Even if they tell you to pull it out, it's a head.
No, I don't know.
People will always
If
find
you
a
want to
way.
be a scallum, you'll be a scallum. That's just how it is.
Yeah, I'm still not even sure about the rule. Even if it's size, if you're allowed to use a yellow, I'm of the opinion that you're not allowed to use a yellow
Why?
if it's size even. I don't know. I don't know what the rule is. I know definitely undersize.
I
If
take
it's
it
size, maybe.
years ago we had the situation where if you had any undersized yellow fish in your net, you would have been disqualified immediately. Boom,
Immediately.
Yeah.
That was the ruling for many, many years. And now that day that we had that boat league at Sillier with those barbel, that afternoon in the net where I had only 9 barbel, there was one copy like this. And I never caught it. And it was dead.
No, I think the barbel's better.
Yeah, definitely.
The barbel's
But now I say, what would have happened those years if it was a undersized yellow? Yeah, all of a sudden you got a dead undersized yellow in your net. With the
Without a
officials
head.
being the officials that we normally know, that don't look left or right, they just say that's the rule. You got an undersized yellow in your net. What would they
Just
have
imagine
done?
if that undersized yellow doesn't have a head.
This one still had a head.
But imagine that
top
one
at
that
the
the barbel spit out didn't have a head. Like just theoretically.
No, Saki, I mean, so once again, getting back to the tournament, I mean, I was very fortunate as well. And I can just say thanks to Chris Stolz, he was sitting next to me. And the last barbel I picked up both his lines. With the wind pumping like it was basically just impossible just to try and control it. I mean, the waves hitting us, the way they were hitting us, I was in the water just about waist deep trying to get this barbel out because it was stuck on both his lines. And he walked back and he just said, you know what, Richard, I'm going to bite my lines off. So hats off to him. I really appreciate it. That's a sportsman view. I mean, he went, he bit his lines off just as I aim 600 meters of line, but I don't know how far he cast it. He needs 600 meters. So yeah, hats off to him as well. I don't think Philip was too happy about it. Because, I mean, they big mates and they're in the Gauteng teams together, but I mean, he was a sportsman. He went and he bit his lines off. I still had to walk in and go and pull loose the lines to get the barbel to move because it was actually stuck on his lines that were casted out.
Dad, we
So it
haven't
was a bonus.
spoken. We We haven't spoken to Richard about the competition idea that we have about the the pegs competition. Have we?
Yeah, yeah,
Have we spoken to him
yeah.
about it?
You can talk to him.
Uncle Rich, we've got a plan, and it'll probably not happen before the winter, so we'll probably try to do it after the winter. Where we want to do a small invitational tournament competition day for the best
Okay.
pegs in South African fishing. So
Best
we
pegs.
have a
Peg.
so we have
best-
a best pegs. So
Peg.
two pair.
Pairs.
Yeah. So we have Gideon and Herman Dix. We've got Martinez and Rolfie. We've got you and Reinhard.
Reinhard.
We've got
Joseph
Johan.
and Oppie
Joseph and Arpi,
and Andrew
Johan and Andrew,
and
then
Dwayne
that-
and
Dwayne
Lloyd.
and Lloyd Price. So it has to be a peg that actually fishes and essays together officially as a peg.
Okay.
And then those pegs compete to see who is the best peg at that day. And then we'll have markers on the outside to make sure that all the end pegs are all sorted out, something like that. What's your opinion about that?
No, I think it's nice. I mean, I would really enjoy it.
But
Once
the fact
again,
that you are two masters, I don't think that you'll
I
qualify.
was
I
thinking
think
about a
you will.
handicap now, Dad. I was wondering if we should give them handicaps for Richard, for Johan, and for Reinhard.
Yeah.
The thing is, Richard, by the time we do that, Richard's going to almost be 60 or 61. He's
61.
60 already. So he's now a veteran already.
yeah, I'll just add 10 fish to each of us
Yeah.
just to get that head start. No, I think that's a very nice concept. I mean, I'd really like to. And once again, it'll be a privilege to fish in that, to be recognized as one of your top pegs,
Well,
maybe
well,
in the country. I mean, that's ultimate.
We got up on this idea, I would say, about 5 or 6 months ago. And from literally the first conception of the idea, we said it has you guys have to be there. Like Richard and Reinhard, I mean, you guys are, as long as I've been fishing, you've been a peg. And you've always competed at the highest level. So that was one of those things where I said to my dad, like it's obvious.
No, well, I mean, we're well known as Team R&R.
Mm.
I mean, we entered the NDE Classic just about 2-3 weeks prior to the elite final, and Reinhard and I were once again very unlucky not to win that. What we did was on day one, on the Saturday, once again the fish were biting. They were on the bite, and we'd noticed the weather coming up, and we said they're going to stop this tournament. They're going to stop it. Let's make a preparation and let's get the bobber rods out, which we did. Reinhard caught a size carpy and he caught an undersized grassy. And I said, bring that grassy. And when we looked at it, we said, no, but this grassy is possibly size. Maybe we shouldn't. No, we're going to cut this grassy, which I did. And I threw that bobber rod. That grassy would have made us win that zone. We lost the zone with 10 grams. Pushed us into a second place. If we'd won the first day, we won the second day, our block, we would have had 2 firsts and we would have won it. That's decisions on the day. If we made the right
who won
decision,
that?
we didn't throw a bobber rod. It was, wasn't it Gideon in them? No, Gideon was
Wasn't
third.
it what
Owen and
position
him were
did Owen and
second.
Emil
Owen and
aim?
Emil. Was it Owen and Emil
They were
first?
second. No, they were second.
Who won
I
it?
can't remember. I honestly can't remember. When you mentioned about the NDE Classic now, I immediately started thinking, it was like, it has to be on the group. It wasn't that long ago.
So what I'm saying is, Team R&R, we're always there and thereabouts. So yeah,
Yeah.
give us a chance. I think it was Herman Dixon that won it, isn't it? Who was his?
No, that would have been Gideon.
No.
And I don't think Gideon. Gideon
So
and them were
Emil-
third, if I remember.
It was Mornay Mostert.
Yeah, Mornay Mostert and
Klopper, Etienne Klopper.
Etienne Klopper.
They won it,
Yeah.
yes. They won it.
just know
En
that
Ed-
the youngsters
en
were
Gideon
second.
hulle was derde.
Ja, Emil en Owen was tweede.
Owen.
Ja.
Yes.
For the
So once
guests,
again, it's all about decisions.
excuse me, Rich, net gous
If we
for the
made-
members, just give me a sec. For the members back home, that's part of the membership. Owen fished the Tri-Nations, all Tri-Nations in Namibia now. This is all Tri-Nations, no, Dad? What is it now? The Region 5 or
Zone
what is it?
5 or
Yeah. Yes.
yeah.
Whatever the competition name is, the one that they do at Hardap. So he fished that last week. So later in this week, we'll quickly jump on a call with him to chat to him about what happened there and all the stuff that happened there. So for the members, you can have a look. Probably around Thursday or Friday, I'll put out a video with Owen. We will talk to him about that, and we'll maybe even get Carl on to join us. That, and we can do, because he's a Namibian, so he can always give us a little bit more information about Hardap and stuff like that. So I think we can do like a membership video for that. We'll definitely do that. We can make
Yeah,
it
so
happen.
getting back to the Steams event, I mean, I think that's a brilliant idea. That's
I really
basically
think
the
that's
NDE
a-
Classic again.
But yeah, it's going to be 5 or 6 pegs.
Okay.
And then what we intend to do is to get 2 pegs on every side,
Blockers.
blockers. The 2 worst pegs of the day is going to fall out.
Okay.
And then of the
the
4
next year.
outside pegs, the best 2 will come in next year.
Okay. So who
So-
are you going to have for the outside? You need to have good guys there
it's
as
got
well.
to be people that can step in for the year thereafter.
Yes.
So what we intend to do is basically then get 10 top teams.
Yes.
Pegs.
Okay.
10 top pegs. So 6 is fishing in the tournament, 4 outside. Next 2 is moving in next year. Those are out, and then we
We
will
fish on the
replace
outside the
them.
next
No, we replace them. Then they're
Okay.
out. If you're out, you're out.
All right.
Or they can be on the
good
end,
concept.
the following year.
No, give somebody else a chance.
Because there's a lot of good anglers out there.
We'll see. Like
No,
I'm pretty sure we'll get a couple of sponsors for that as well. So I'm pretty sure we can make something fun with that. If we can get some videos taken
will
of that day, I think it could be a good video for the people at home to watch. I think if you do it the right way, I think it can get quite a lot of traction.
Yes. No, looking
All right.
forward to it.
Come on, let's quickly turn the conversation a bit to the fishing that's coming up now. I know that I spoke to my dad this morning, and he spoke very slowly because I think he was half frozen. 2 jackets on, freezing in South Africa. I'm struggling to understand. I'm struggling to understand the cold. I've got my aircon set on 16. I've got a fan on, and I'm still not comfortable. That's how hot it is here. But Richard, how does that affect the fishing now? I saw some of the competitions that was fished this weekend was, again, 10 kilos, 11 kilos a bag, winning the day. Looks rough.
Saki, I just don't know what's happening with the Vaal Dam at this point in time. It's very up and down. One week we seem to catch a lot of fish. Next week you're battling to catch fish. I just don't know what's happening. If I take back, I think last weekend or the weekend before, they had the Champ of Champs at Bloemhof. And I mean, big bags of fish came out. And those weren't barbel, it were carps. So big bags of fish came out there. On the Vaal system, on the Vaal Dam system, one weekend you get a lot of fish. Next weekend we just don't seem to get fish. And it's not that it's just one venue. It seems to be all the venues around the dam. So personally, I think once again, it's just too much water coming in. Fresh water's in, fresh bait. All your natural foods are in the dam. And I think we're going to struggle. The dam started getting water now again. I think we're sitting at 111, 112% with the rains we've had now. So I think we're going to struggle now.
The sluice gates open again.
Sluice gates are open. So I think we're going to struggle now again especially now in the winter. The dam, I don't even think is going to be settled by the start of the summer. So we just got to wait and see, play it out. I mean, I'm going to go this weekend for the first time since the final. I'm going to go to the dam again and just go give it a weekend. It's Staines. So it's a bit of a battle to get in there with the dam on the level that it is now. We decided we're going to wait until tomorrow or the night after, because can you even get over the stress bridge with the dam being as high as what it is now? So yeah, let's see what happens.
But if the water's that high, can't you go? Didn't we at some point go like up above to go around? Didn't we do that one year?
That farm has always been extremely difficult. I don't know if the farm changed hands in the meantime,
Not
but
as far as I know.
in the past, that's one oak that said, "You come through my land and I'm freaking there's big trouble."
Yeah, okay, but we
No,
also had a couple
no,
of
we tried to
trials
do
there.
that.
We had a couple of trials there where afterwards the roads looked horrible. So I could understand that though.
Yeah, but I'm sure you'll be able to get in at
Look, I think if you can get
Rosia.
over this stress bridge, it should be fine.
No, that's fine.
And I mean, the problem is once that dam starts subsiding, the wall dam starts getting lower, then you got the black turf that starts becoming more and more apparent. That's when you start getting stuck.
Yeah.
With the dam being as high as what it is, I don't think it's going to be a problem with getting stuck there. All I said is maybe over the stress bridge might be a bit of a challenge. But yet, I think a few years ago they lifted it.
Is it?
Yeah, so it should be fine to get in there. You're just going to be fishing in all the, the
Bossies.
long bossies and that, because there's so much water. And that farmer doesn't really clean the venue, on the waterfront.
Well, they don't get time.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
don't
at
get
this
time.
point in time, every time you think the dam is going to drop, and tomorrow morning you wake up and it's rising.
It's picked up again.
Well, but
Yeah, no, I don't know. What are we? 110, 112?
It's 111 this morning.
Okay.
You talking about the stress bridge now? It makes me think. I think we've told the story on the podcast before. We fished at at Staines one year, and I was a little lighty and we got to the dam in the morning, and the farmer had a big red trailer that you put bales or something on it that he pulls with a tractor. And the morning we got there, the tractor was the trailer was on the, how can I say, on the other side of the channel, on the other side of the bridge, on the bus side of the bridge, on that side. So we go over the stress bridge. We fish, did our things, everything. 3 o'clock, weigh in, pack up, go home, and I'm driving. I'm driving back to the tar road, and then from there, my dad drives home. And my dad and I, now we're chatting about the day. We're talking about what are we going. My dad's just like, we're not going to, the road at the top was really bumpy and really, really bad. So we said, oh, we're just going to go here next to the water. We know where it is. My dad's like, just go for the red trailer. Just go for the red trailer. And I'm having a chat with my dad. Go. All of a sudden, there's just all hell breaks loose. Wow, stop. Emergency brake. And then during the go of the day, the farmer moved the trailer to the other side of the what do you call it? A canal.
You always go straight into that.
He just took it to the other side, and I'm not paying attention. I'm talking to my dad. I'm driving. I'm looking. I can see the trailers there. I'm on my way to the trailer. Yes, just in time. We stopped there. Yes, almost.
Yeah.
I'm
But Staines will be a good venue if you can get in.
I think it's going to be a good venue.
Staines has always been good if the water level is very high, and Staines is always to me good if the weather is cold and unstable. It's always been one of those venues where you can scratch a couple of fish out there in the shallows, and then definitely if you fish those long distances, you will get those
bigger carps. Yes,
they
always been a
there's always been a venue for nice carps. Not so much grass carps for some other reason. And I think the barbel are off now. I think it's just got too cold over the last, say, 2 or 3 weeks. I think the temperature in the water has started dropping. and they go and they lie. You can still obviously catch a bobble or two, but I mean, that's not that they're going to be on. That I would target them. I would rather fish a short game and then maybe try a 95 or 105 for the bigger carp. But yes, that's my plan for the weekend, is to try and get a few carps in the net. And muddies, obviously, muddies also full up at Staines. It's not a venue like Jackie Leonard where it's even better, but I mean, it's known for giving.
Jackie, as far as I believe, it's quite tough now for muddies.
It's also tough. But the whole Val dam is tough at this point in time. And I can just put it down to there's just too much fresh water and
the instability of the weather. I really think that is the main thing for the last weekend. I mean, those fish definitely knows what's coming, and they can feel the snow that fell in the Northern Cape and Western Cape and everything. Especially with the winds we have at the moment, that it's really, really, the wind chill factor is big. And I think at the dam over that water, it's definitely going to be worse. So I think that the actual temperature of the water must have dropped best part of 3, 4, 5 degrees over the last couple of days. And that will definitely cause a fish to just start to relax a bit.
For sure, Barry. I mean, 3 or 4 degrees is a huge drop in temperature.
So what will you change in your approach to Staines for that?
Just try and be more, how can I put this? Patience.
Yeah.
I think patience is going to be the name of the game.
I was waiting. I was going to say that's the name of the game, is patience.
Patience, definitely. And obviously, depending on the wind factor, I mean, I'll fish a lot lighter, a lot smaller, and just got to be patient and see what happens around you. Obviously, if a guy's left and right of you are getting fish, you're not getting fish, you've got to make the change, whether they're going deeper or fishing shallower, catching the smaller or the bigger fish, you're going to have to adapt unless you get it going a lot faster than what they do. But I think we're going to have to be patient. You're not going to be catching a lot of fish like you have been now in the summer.
I think 6, 7, 8 fish for the day, and you're going to be in the pound seats.
Yeah.
Uncle Rich, will you leave your... Uncle Richard, are you leaving your flying ants at home, or are you still taking a little bag with?
I don't even think I'll be throwing a flying ant.
But are you taking some with, or are you
actually
leaving them
just
at
keep
home?
the flying ants when I fish elites and like the final. I mean, I don't have as many as all these other guys that have got bags and bags of flying ants, and I can't afford to go buy 50 rand a bag for the flying, a couple of flying ants. So I just keep them. They're in the deep freeze. When I know I'm fishing a big tournament, I'll take a bag or two out, and that's for myself and Reinhard. We don't have many of those. I mean, when they do fly, I tend to jump into the bucket with myself and Diego.
And then we know what happens around the circles. And
Yeah, you're not going to
luckily, Jet is always there with a couple of stomach pulls.
Yeah, she had those tablets for me. So, yeah, no, I mean...
We went past
But
that way
that's-
too
Richard
fast.
is-
We
for the people,
went
we
past
can
that
tell.
point way too fast, though, Richard. I don't think the people understand why I'm laughing like this.
Everybody can know. Richard is fine to bite the fish head off, but don't let him see those flying ants. He's getting gnar.
I thought it was the
We all know
the
what
driving. I thought it was the driving that made him.
It is,
the
man.
driving,
I'm just joking now.
No, I tend to get very car sick, and I mean, the way Diego was driving that night, we were trying to follow Gideon and him. Now, Gideon and him, they taking us to the place where they are flying, and it's left and right and left. I'm still going left, and Diego's already turned right. So it feels like my head's going one direction, and the
So
car's going in
imagine
different.
Richard was with you in the car with that red trailer.
Oh no! I just said that we go back so long. I said to him, like, as long as I've known fishing, you've been part of it. Like, I've known you literally. I'm 33 years old now. I think I know you probably 27 years, 25.
Well, we started, Supercars started in 1994, if I remember correctly.
I think it was before that.
No, I think it's 94. Or 1990.
It was before I was born.
90. Yeah, and yeah, true. And you were born in 93.
93. Yeah.
So it's 1990. And that's basically from that time that I know Richard.
Yeah.
Yeah, we knew
just
each other before that already, but I mean, I started doing more, working more with you. We were
Yeah.
building stands for you, myself and
When
Desmond.
we were still in the very, very, very first premises.
Yes.
Wow.
There by the Germiston Walk or something.
Yeah, Golden Walk.
Golden Walk.
Yeah.
Wow. I
You
said
were
to
still
him, like,
upstairs.
I said to this friend of mine, I said to him, it's just insane that I can do this type of stuff with people like you, with Lukumyan Beekers, where it's like you are literally like the people. If I think about fishing, that is what I'm thinking of. Like you,
Okay.
that's my memory of fishing is with you guys and with Lani. That's the stuff that if I think of fishing, that's what I think of. And it's just so amazing for me to do all of these things, and you guys are still joining the podcast.
Still doing.
Still doing.
Yeah, well, it's nice to know that I've got youngsters that think of me and look up to it and think, yes, this one was there that time. I mean, myself and Martin, and we were manager and captain of the junior teams for many years. You can all remember Nadine won the first South African junior championships as a young girl. I was fortunate enough to be the manager or the captain, myself and Martin. So yeah, no, we've come a long way with the juniors, and you're all now also growing older now.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like we starting to get like gray beards. I'm pretty sure Dean also every now and then finds a gray hair somewhere. Luckily he's blonde, so I don't think he's got too many of the gray hairs.
Yeah, but with the blondness comes the red hair in the beard.
Yeah, mine
He's
like
got the red hair in the beard.
My wife every now and then she comes to me and she plucks a little gray hair out of my beard, and I'm like, ish. It's getting to that point in time. But Richard, you said that it's nice for you that some of the youngsters will look up to you like that, and that's a nice thing I think about the podcast is we are creating something that will live on YouTube forever.
Yes.
Like I'm thinking of the episodes that I've done with Jumbo. Okay? Jumbo isn't here with us anymore. But if you want to find out what he thinks of fishing and how he approached something, go look at the episode. It's there. It will be there for years to come. And there's a lot of information and there's a lot of in-depth talking that he goes through about how he fished. And forever, you can go back and go see what Jumbo said. And one day when my dad is not there, you can go back to that. One day when you are not there anymore, we can go back. And it's just going to be on the internet forever. And for generations to come, we'll know this is how Papgooi was done in 2026. That's how Papgooi was done in 2025. That is how Papgooi was done in 2023. It's an amazing platform.
It's there.
No,
for sure. I mean, if you're talking Jumbo now, I mean, I learned so much about Jumbo as well. I had the privilege of being in the Protea team with him twice. And I mean, he's very knowledgeable. So I had the privilege of being with him. So yes, I mean, even me at my age, I learned a lot from Jumbo. And so we learn from each other. I mean, I can say honestly, I think a lot of the juniors, if I go and I look what they're doing, I think, but why didn't I think of that? So it's not just to say that we're the older generation. We can learn from the youngsters as well. If you go back and you look at the ND Classic, you had Owen and his Peggy. I mean, those guys came second overall. Those are two juniors that just come just out of the junior section.
Yeah.
I mean, look how they're fishing. We can learn from those guys.
You're talking about those two. We did an episode with Emil a couple of weeks ago. And we asked him the question that we've asked most of the guests about fishing on a... That was it, the one on the fishing on the spot and then the fish just goes away.
Yeah.
And what was his answer?
He said that something that he will always do is if he's fishing 65, 75, the fish is going away. The moment when he see the tempo is dropping, immediately before he wants to recast the 75 rod, immediately he will first unclip it, put 3 bombs on 85,
okay,
for instance, pick a distance and put it there. And then he's got his mark on his line, so he will he put 3 bombs there and then go back on his 75. and check it again. If it still doesn't work, he puts 3 bombs there and then he puts his bait. So by that time, he's got 7 bombs on 85 while everybody else is still stuffing around on 75.
So he started building a second call now.
While he's still fishing on the 75,
yes.
or let's say the 65 one, he decides to move that out. But he will do that in advance. Before he moves it, he will make sure that he first put 3 bombs there quickly.
Give it some
chuck
time to
3,
relax.
and then put the trace back on the old spot. Give it 5 or 10 minutes or so to start working, and then you will start fishing there.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's something that's new to me. I mean, I've never even thought of that. But yes, I mean, we could do something like that. Look, why do fish normally go off? We can all assume we know. But I mean, there are so many factors that can come into play. I mean, the drop in pressure, the weather conditions. There could be barbel in your area. You just don't know. I mean, there are so many factors to take into account. But you can't keep doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result.
Yeah.
So like he said, he's gone and he's made a plan. He's gone the 10 meters or the 5 meters further. And that's a brilliant plan.
But what I'm just saying is, like, we've had a bunch of guests that said that they will move that 5 meters further or 5 meters closer. But the way that he argued, the way that he, and this, we didn't give him the question beforehand. We gave it like quickly on the podcast. So it's not something that he could have thought of for. So that was something on the spot. And like thinking of something like that, that means like that's something that he actually implements in his fishing.
Yes, he does.
And I think that's a very smart way to do something like that. And he's 19. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I think there's a lot of the older generation that can look back at that and say, listen, it's like this light, he actually knows what he's doing.
And I mean, I know for a fact we don't do that.
Yeah.
We just go 5 meters further. That's how we do, or come 5 meters closer. I've never
cut your losses and carry on.
of it. And I said it.
I say I've always done it in one condition where I'm for instance fishing a 125 and 115, and I decide, okay, yes, like things are looking bad, I'm going to put a rod closer. Then I'll quickly sand on. I'll quickly chuck 5 bombs here, go back to the 115, and wait an hour or so, and then come in. But that's something completely different to where you just move. We take a new approach by coming completely in 50 meters. But this guy is just at 5 meters or 10 meters, and just getting some feed there to start getting the fish active in the area.
Yes, Barry. I mean, what you did, like you're saying, you're totally different. That situation is a totally different situation. He's still trying to keep the 75 working. He's going. He's preparing his 80 or his 85, and he's still coming back and he's still trying to work the 75. If it's still not happening, he'll go and he'll put another 3 balls there at the 85 mark, and he's starting to lay the foundation for all the feed in that there. So should the fish started moving to the deeper water or the further rod, I mean, he's at least got some feed there. Whereas we coming from a 125 to a 50, it's totally different.
Yeah, that's what I say.
Yes, definitely so. Yeah, it's good thinking that. So there, I've learned something tonight now as well.
Richard, I think we learn something almost every episode. I'm serious. Like if I say that if you listen to the podcast on a regular basis, you will know that sometimes we just have a chat. There's some episodes where we really just have a chat. But there's always something in the middle of the chat, the stories and stuff like that. There's always something to be learned. Like there's always some little bit of information that somebody can learn. Just makes you think about something in a little bit in a different way. And it's happened so many times on the podcast before.
Definitely. I mean, we don't know nothing. On the day, you just do something that's stupid and you think, but why didn't I even think of something like that? And I mean, it works. I mean, if I take years ago, I mean, I used to go and I used to put a worm on with a little brown bait back in. I don't even do that anymore. Or I used to take 2 does, maybe an orange doe and a white doe. I used to roll the 2 up like a licorice all sorts sweep and then put it onto those things we don't even think of. But there's youngsters still doing it and it works for them. And they start believing
worms with the bread behind it, we used to call a meat pie.
Yes, a meat pie.
Put a meat pie with geevee or meat pie with Waldam. Oh my goodness, man,
Yeah.
we caught freaking plenty fish.
We just don't do it anymore. I mean, I think angling as a whole has got a lot faster. We think back of rugby in the 1950s and 60s. They had tough guys, yes, but they weren't. Today's game is a lot faster than what it was in those years, and I think the angling has evolved as well. It's got a lot faster. I mean, we used to fish with the Platkatrolle, your Elvies. We first started with Elvies and Orlandos, and then we went over to the Shimano's and the Coffee Mealers and stuff. So it's got a lot faster than what it is in 15, 20 years ago.
Something that I can say, we talk of the baits and stuff, and just makes me think about. I think it was in February, myself and Leo were at Sterkfontein Dam, and the one day I was driving around the dam there, and I started talking to a guy, and he said to me, "Well, if you want to catch yellowfish here, you've got to use brown bread." And I said, "No." He said, "I'm telling you, he fish league and everything for Free State." And he said he couldn't catch yellowfish in the dam. Till the people said to him, "Get brown bread, make yourself a brown bread and put the brown bread, blob of brown bread on, and that's it. You can mix a flavor in or put some fluorescein with it, anything like that, but you got to have a brown bread on. No floating, no dough, no nothing." And I said, "Yeah, and I heard that. And the Sunday afternoon, myself and Leah said, "Well, okay, let's go and see if we can get one of those yellows."
The brown bread.
And we went down, but before that, I said, "Yeah, I'm just going to get a bread quickly there at the shop."
Okay.
What's the point? Somebody tells you something and you don't use it. That often happens where you get all the right information, but we don't listen to it.
You
Yes.
So I
disregard
said,
it
"No,
immediately.
it's the price of a bread." And I went and I bought the bread and I took it, and we started fishing our normal way. Nothing happened. And it was about the hour after we started, I thought, "Well, okay, let me take that brown bread and mix it quickly." And I made a soft brown bread, put it on, and it was 10 minutes, and we caught the first yellow. And we caught all our fish with the brown bread. So it's definitely, you never laugh and never deny that, or say somebody is wrong, because you can never do it. Um, and when you were talking about the brown bread backing now, I thought, yes, like it makes me immediately think of that.
The backing, the caramel backing we made there in Morgenson Dam. Can you remember
Yeah.
that? I mean, that caramel backing always used to work very well. Yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, fish today they want X, tomorrow they want Y. A barbel especially. Today you'll catch barbel, you'll catch plenty, maybe on a platana. Tomorrow you'll throw that plata, it won't pick it up. It might just want to pick up worms. So all the fish on the day want what they want. I mean, it's not to say you get there and you think you're going to throw that brown bread and it's not going to work on the day. So yeah, elke vis het mos sy dag.
Yeah, all right. I think the time caught us up a bit now. We are on hour and 10, and I can hear myself echoing like crazy there on my dad's side again. I don't know what's happening now. Uncle Richard, always lucky to talk to you. Thank you for sharing. We've been trying to get you on for a while, but I think after your finals, you knew that the call was coming. I think you expected it. But yeah, it was always lucky to talk to you again. Hopefully, we don't wait another year before we do this. We've tried to keep it to once every 6 months or so, and I think we should just continue with that.
The people must just remember, Richard works very systematically. So he builds up his whole year. He builds up towards a final. So he's actually makaking the whole year till he gets to the final. Then he starts shaping. The week before that with the NDE, and then with the, and that's the way he's always been, man. He's never on top during the year, but get to the end of the race, then he's there.
Dad, I think
That's
you
what it's
forgot that
about.
Richard is next to you. I think my dad is now talking as if he's
But what I'm
online
saying-
again.
What I say is,
I think
it's
he
all
got
about
carried
the
away.
race. It's not. It doesn't matter if you win the first elite or the second elite. You want to win the final.
Yeah.
Um,
But Richard, thank you. We really appreciate it. Always like to talk to you.
No, thanks a lot, Saki, and I think to you and your dad, thanks for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure talking to you guys again. And yeah, your dad is 100% correct. It's not about it's all about getting to the final destination. Whether I ended up 50th and made the top 50 or ended up first, it doesn't matter. It's about the end result. And that's what counts
got it.
to me.
And you
Reynard
got
and
it.
myself have decided we're not going to go fish 20, 30 of these elites. You're going to spend flipping X amount of money. If you can just get 10 in and you can make your top 30, you're in with a shot. So, yeah, from my side, Barry, Saki, thanks a lot and hope to see you guys soon.
good.
Thank you.
Dad, en dan wil ek vir Paul baie dankie sê. It was lekker talking to you. It was a bit of an easier one for you tonight. You didn't have to set up too much.
Ja, ons moes net so 'n bietjie 'n klankprobleempie uitsort, maar dit was maklik.
Yeah, easy.
Cheers, cheers.
Okay, but then for the listeners back home, I want to say thank you if you listened till now. Next week we'll be back with another one at 12 o'clock Wednesday. We will be here. I'm not sure if the guest is committed yet, but
Not
we've got
lined
an
up
interesting lined up yet. But we've got 2 in the pipeline, so two good guests that's going to be up within the next week or 2. So keep an eye out on that. It's guests that you guys liked in the past, and then one new one. But yeah, I'll see you guys next week, 12 o'clock. Same time,
Something
same
that
place.
I can just quickly say at the end is next week I will definitely be in somewhere in the Hermanus
Town.
area. So hopefully you can tell Kleintjie I'm going to see if I can catch a galjoen and make
She's
her
not gonna
very
be happy.
jealous.
She's not going to be happy. I think I will ignore that.
All right.
All right, but I'll check you guys next week, Wednesday, 12 o'clock. We'll be here. Cheers.